The i5 6600K, the i7 6700K, and the i7 6900K. 4 cores and 4 threads, 4 cores and 8 threads, and 8 cores, 16 threads, all with prices to match. Yeah, I know. So with all of this hype behind the X99 platform, Broadwell E-chips, and quad-channel memory, is the 6900K a logical or insane choice? I'll make this one simple for you. Rather than trusting a random person on some forum who may not even own the processor in question, or a sketchy graph on a not-so-reliable website, let's look at the cold hard facts based on reliable and relatable benchmarking data. I won't waste your time. Here are the specs for each platform, essentially Walter White version 1.0 versus Walter White version 2.0. Walter White version 2.0 is that one right there. 30 minutes of I264 was my stability baseline, and if temperatures exceeded 80 C, frequency and voltage were adjusted accordingly. That's how we arrived here. Both our 66 and 6700K were overclocked to 4.6 GHz at 1.38 volts, and the 6900K was overclocked to 4.4 GHz at 1.39 volts. 16 GB of DDR4 at 3000 MHz were used for both tests, the only difference here being that the X99's platform utilized the quad-channel array, whereas dual-channel was in effect for that of the Z170s. This is a trade-off between both platforms and will most certainly be taken advantage of, although it's unlikely to sway many of these results. These are CPU synthetic tests, so each processor will have 2 unique scores. One with virtually no background processes running, and the other with 3 Chrome tabs, Twitter, YouTube, and Amazon, the Windows Pandora app, and NVIDIA Shadowplay all running in the background. Since only heavy multitaskers or renderers should consider anything above an i5, it's only fair that we take advantage of the extra threads packed into the i7 processors. For those of you also interested in gaming benchmarks, those will be available for you in a card right here. With that, let's analyze. First up, the typical Cinebench R15 runs. The 6900K absolutely wipes the floor with its much cheaper counterparts, but no surprise there. Keep in mind as we analyze these graphs that the 6900K costs nearly 3 times as much as the 6700K. In terms of score percent decrease with the background processes running, we can see that the 6900K was largely unaffected, while the 6600K embraced a substantial performance hit. 7-zip is up next. Extraction and compression takes place during this benchmark, and while the margins are a bit narrower, the 6900K still impressively outperformed the 6700K. Something else to note, an extremely minute degree of degradation because of said background processes. Both the 66 and 6700Ks definitely struggled here. For raw processing power, another great standard is Geekbench. With the result of version 4, score variance changed slightly, but overall we can still get a feel for both single and multi-core performance with these 3 CPUs. While multi-core scores were dominated by the 8-core giant, the 6700K demolishes the Broadwell E powerhouse when it comes to single-core performance, a noteworthy observation for gamers. This undoubtedly makes the 6700K a better choice for gaming, as most games only utilize a maximum of 4 physical cores currently. The 6600K single-core score is also in the ballpark, and arguably a better bet for those who intend to only play video games on their PC. More on that in a video right here. In terms of multitasking potential, however, the 6900K shows its true colors. We experienced only 0.25% decrease in Geekbench scores while running several programs in the background. In Adobe Premiere Pro, I exported a 10-minute 1080p 60fps file in the YouTube 1080p H.264 preset and recorded total render times. I purchased the 6900K primarily for editing and rendering, but was largely disappointed with these results. The 8-core chip was only 1.5 minutes faster than the 6700K, that's only 27%. For a 300% price differential. Most of this is due to core optimization. Adobe Premiere just isn't there yet, and CPU usage during the multitasking run still never pegged 90%. These results will vary depending on your video editing platform and its current version. Lastly, we have Handbrake, which I use to convert a 1-minute MP4 file into the MKV format, which is free and open source. What you're looking at here are the conversion times in seconds. As expected, the 6900K finishes in nearly half the time required by the 6700K, and the 6600K nearly doubled that time. Handbrake can be very taxing when converting multimedia, and that's why we see consistent time percent increases across the board, the i5 of course experiencing the worst of it. So now that you've gotten to experience firsthand the performance gains associated with a $1,000 processor, are you a bit disappointed? So am I. I'll be completely honest about that. Even after taking the entire build price into account, I still can't justify the X99 platform, which is why I was against it in the first place. I explain it more in a video right here. Now, don't get me wrong, my workflow efficiency has definitely increased. I expected that. I mean, I'm paying $1,000, the processor better be pretty darn good. But when you start taking into consideration the price to performance ratios and just how much more you have to spend on the platform altogether, even if you take the entire price of the PC into account, it still doesn't justify a $1,000 price tag. I do have 40 PCIe lanes, good for my two 1070s and SLI. I do have quad channel memory. Again, performance gains are marginal. I just don't see it adding up. Whereas with the 6700K and a Z170 platform, you're paying less overall for the entire system, and you're getting some pretty solid single-core performance. In fact, some of the best out there. If you look at the Geekbench score of the 6700K, it's in the 5,000s. That's definitely a huge change from the roughly 4,000 score we received on our single-core Geekbench test. And when it comes to strictly gaming, forget about X99. Did you get that? Forget about X99. Take my word for it, you're much better off with a desktop-grade i5 or i7. Again, don't waste your money on anything above an i7 6700K for gaming. You won't reap the benefits of having extra cores at your disposal because most games aren't optimized for 6 or 8 or definitely 10 core behemoths. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Give it a thumbs down if you do feel the complete opposite, or if you hate everything about life. Be sure to click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and stay tuned for another PC build on the way, actually. I expect it to be here next week sometime, and then we're going to do some upgrades to Walter White version 2.0 behind me. This is Science Studio. Thanks for learning with us.